Universal History, Part 1. The progenitors of this universe are known as the founders. These 9 souls had completed many universal games and decided to come together to create a new universe. In technical terminology, I say they created this universe, but what I really mean is that they created this game. Since what every soul desires is spiritual evolution, the founders decided to create a polarity integration game, which is one of the many games involving the integration of the light and the dark. They set the stage and put out a call to all the souls in all the universes, omni-verse, to come participate in this experience with them. The call was answered by 90 souls who were highly evolved and wished for a place in which to continue their spiritual evolution. This group of 90 was composed of 45 Carrions and 45 Felines, souls who like to take on physical characteristics of cats and birds. They came into this universe and convened with the founders. They selected from their group one named Devon to act as a liaison between this group of 90 and the founders. Devon was the patriarch of the feline race. The felines were given a home planet in the Lyra constellation, in the galaxy in which to incarnate on, while the Carrions were given a planet in the Orion constellation. In this game, our universe, the felines represent the light and the Carrions represent the dark. After a period of evolution, both races had crossbred with other life forms, creating unique physical bodies, including humans, with which to incarnate in, and had also established royal lines with respective hierarchies. One day, the Carrions colonized a planet in the Lyra constellation, which is where the first Earth grand experiment began. On a neighboring planet, the felines had fashioned advanced technology with which to create wormholes and space travel. So they traveled back and forth between the planets in this galaxy and created alliances with many Carrion nations. Myriad children were birthed, and the 2 primary races, Carrions and Felines, mixed their royal lines in order to create a caste system appearing as such: royalty, priests, scientists, military, workers, on down the line. An afflictive lack of communication led to the first great galactic war, in which the Carrions launched an attack against the felines. Much destruction ensued. After the first great galactic war, Devon and several others fled on the starship Pangaea to a star cluster known as the Pleiades, the 7 sisters, where they established a colony on a blue planet and called their home Avion. This was known as the second Earth grand experiment. Life progressed on this planet, and great human civilizations advanced their technology to the point of space travel. Central governments ruled while disease and disparity were all but eliminated. There was little individuality, and the dark side was totally ignored. People did not use their lower 3 chakras and so became spiritually stagnant. A race then came who was their polar opposite. They were very masculine, and upon first viewing the planet, attempted a peace treaty until they realized there was more to gain from taking over. When the humans became cognizant of this, they pulled out all the stops in an attempt to drive the invading race away, but in so doing decimated their planet. Their survivors fled to many places in the galaxy and established colonies in other planets. The third Earth grand experiment is our Earth. The first 2 Earths never made it through an ascension process because they never learned how to properly integrate both the light and the dark. Many souls on Earth today were on one or both of these planets and now are here to complete an ascension process. The Earth we live on now is highly conducive towards the learning of compassion because it is so diverse. In fact, the present Earth is the most diverse planet in this entire galaxy, which is why many extraterrestrial races are here now observing what happens in the next several years. No matter how it happens, the ascension process will come to pass, as never before has there been so much assistance. I will now give a brief overview of the original races in the universe. The felines have a cat-like countenance and were one of the two primary races which fomented this universal polarity integration game. They range from 12 to 16 feet in height and are bipedal. They do not have fur, but they do have soft covering their bodies, soft fur, fuzz covering their bodies, and manes. Both the males and females have long hair, and as they mature, their body color changes from golden brown to white. The overall feline temperament is intellectual, confident, and gentle. They are very fair, and their nature is inquisitive. When the feline form first appeared in the Lyra star system, it was very etheric in nature. So over millions of years, the felines evolved for themselves. Physical bodies taking on the appearance of lions and cats. Meow! As many of the felines began incarnating into these physical bodies, some stayed in etheric form to serve as guides and mentors. Because just like any of the third density planet with free will, a veil of amnesia is pulled over those incarnating souls. Through countless incarnational cycles, the felines evolved in a form that walked upright and was capable of holding the higher feline consciousness as a result of DNA mixing from bipedal mammals. These lower order hominoids were naturally evolving at the same time. Eventually, a physical form evolved that had human-like body and a feline face, and it was this form that was introduced to the royal line of Avion. After further DNA upgrading and evolution, the felines developed space travel and warp technology. Some groups became space travelers, while others became master geneticists. They developed complex life forms and spread them to other planets in this galaxy and in other galaxies. After many genetic experiments, they took the DNA from bipedal mammals and upgraded it to produce humans. Originally, there were two types of humans, those with red hair and those with blonde hair. The red-headed humans were outgoing and energetic, while the blonde-headed humans were general and introspective. Over time, human-feline crossbreeds were created, which infiltrated the royal house of Avion. The felines are and remain the guardians of their genetic offspring, the humans. Devon, feline, is the reigning patriarch of the ninth dimensional royal house of Avion, and Anu, human, is the reigning patriarch of the fifth dimensional royal house of Avion. The humans are the youngest of the four primary races in this universe and were created by the felines. They were given the gene of compassion as a gift from the felines, who realized that the ultimate tool for integrating the light and the dark is indeed compassion. The humans were taught how to open the heart chakra and live in harmony with all races. When the humans began colonizing the Pleiadian star system, they became heavily involved in the royal house of Avion. The Carrions are the other primary race that came to this universe when it was in its infancy. They are bird-like beings who resemble human-like eagles. When they arrived at their planet in the Orion constellation, they found humid swamps, jungles, and tropical islands. Like the felines, several carrion souls stayed in the etheric form to serve as guides, while the rest incarnated into genetically upgraded physical bodies. These incarnations took the form of birds, illustrating luminous colors. The body took on a wide variety of forms, ranging from a few inches in height to 12 feet. After many thousands of years, they took on genetic engineering experiments and created a crossbreed between themselves and certain types of reptiles that were evolving in the swamps and other warm regions of the planet. These experiments led to the genesis of the Draconian race. The royal house of On is the counterpart to the royal house of Avion, and at one time contained only purebred carrions, until the Draconian crossbreed became abundant. The Draconian race had another genetic offshoot called the flying serpents, both races later emerging as the aggressors of human societies. The Carrion race exhibits the qualities of sharp analytical thinking and organizational skills. They learned how to be master geneticists from the felines, and now they are controlling planet Earth. When I say Earth, I mean, of course, the planet we now live on. This planet, third Earth, the grand experiment. Over aeons of time, there have been 3 Earth grand experiments. At the time of the first Earth grand experiment, the royal house of Aun was headed by a winged serpent named Kobazar. Kobazar is the father of Jehovah. The Carrions are good team players and therefore know how to achieve goals. They are not to be undermined as they are very distinguished at what they do. They make codes of conduct adhering to strict discipline, and that is why you will find many Carrions involved in creating and maintaining stargates, dimensional grids, and magnetic fields throughout the Milky Way galaxy and other galaxies in the universe. They possess strong militaristic capabilities and bear admirable fleets of starships which traverse the universe. During the first Earth Grand Experiment, they held the position of guarding many military posts. And it is a Carrion you will find that ruled over the massive fleet of starships for the Lyran Galactic Federation during the First Great Galactic War. A Carrion also ruled over the royal houses of Avion and Alm for many thousands of years. The Reptilians are the creation of the Carrions. On a planet in the Alpha Draconis star system and the Orion constellation was this form evolved. The royal line of Reptilians is and always will remain the Draconians. The Draconians look like winged dragons, and their royal line of beasts is called the Sikar. They are white and have very long tails. The generals on the top chain of leadership have large horns on their head. The shapes of their faces take many forms, but always remain in a reptilian fashion. The reptiles are divided into two sub-races, the winged serpents and the lizards. The Reptilians have a highly refined knowledge of universal physics and were responsible for many of the mystery schools on Earth, their teachings being the highly refined knowledge from their parent race. The Reptilians were given by their parent race a creation myth, which clashed with the creation myth of the humans. The creation myth of the Reptilians stated they had the right to take over and colonize any planet they chose and to destroy any civilization they saw there, while the creation myth given to the humans taught them to live in harmony with their planets and develop agricultural civilizations. This is a reason why there has been so much conflict between reptilians and humans throughout the dimensions. It is the polarity integration game being acted out. The reptilians are much less emotional than their human counterparts, so that is how they can kill without feeling much. The reptilian represent the dark in the polarity integration game, and the humans represent the light. If there was no conflict, then soul evolution would cease and the universe would become stagnant. Through this game, all souls have the opportunity to evolve back into the prime creator. At this time, Jehovah is the patriarch of the ninth dimensional house of Om. And until recently, Enki was the reigning patriarch of the fourth dimensional house of Om. Marduk, Enki's son, was the commander of the Federation flagship Nibiru after he had wrestled control of it from his grandfather Anu. This story has been told on many ancient stone tablets found throughout what is known as ancient Mesopotamia. But many tablets have been distorted, fragmented, and stolen. Right now, Enki is the patriarch of the fifth dimensional house of On, and also the head of the fifth dimensional Nibiruan council representing the dark. The Namos are a race of beings that take on the physical form of dolphins, whales, and mermaids. A planet in the Sirius star system full of warm, aqua blue water was given to them as their home planet. When they don't take the form of dolphins or whales, many of the Namos walk upright in physical human-like bodies. The Namos are advanced in their use with sound. Many etheric Syrians are incarnated into dolphin and whale bodies on Earth at this time, and they are overlooked by the Namos. They're guardians and guides to these souls. When the Earth ascends, the etheric Syrians are the soul group that will become the guardians. They were given Earth as their new home when their former home, a planet near the star of Sirius B, imploded. After 2013, many of the etheric Syrians, now in aquatic form, will have the option of taking on a human form while serving as a land guardian. Many, in the meantime, are returning to the Namos homeworld for training on how to live in a human body. Those humans walking the earth right now that are of the etheric Syrian soul group are usually attracted to dolphins and whales, and many are in organizations which aim to heal the Earth's ecosystem and conserve its resources. Most of the etheric Syrians incarnated right now on Earth are in black, red, and brown races. Orbs, the simplest of sentient beings in the universe, orbs are dense groupings of charged particles called plasma that appear as glowing balls of any color. They are very innocent because they are polarized towards the light, meaning they are very fragile and cannot process feelings of anger, guilt, or unhappiness. They live in what is called a collective consciousness, meaning they all live in a group mind where all thoughts, feelings, and experiences are shared. They exist to serve mankind and are called upon to provide windows into other dimensions and alternate timelines. They are time travelers of light and act as historians to society. In some cultures, they are revered as gods because they can hold an immense amount of information. They can also be used as crystal balls. Orbs have sent members of their society to represent them as star seeds on Earth. Just like many other galactic races, each soul that comes to Earth from the Orb star system agrees to help the planet and evolve by helping others. This in turn benefiting itself. Orb star seeds on Earth are highly sensitive and psychic, very polite, private, shy, introverted, creative, and passionate about learning. The introduction of life. I would like to divert for a moment now and talk about how life on planets gets introduced. It is important to remember that only a soul can give a body life. A physical body of any kind is just a dimensional spacesuit, held and formed by complex configurations of nucleobases strung along a DNA structure. The DNA is a nucleic acid that stores information about genetic coding in a particular species of organism and can be tampered with by minds of higher intelligence. In the end, though, it is spirit that gives life its true qualities. In this universe, the founders, being 12th density beings, created a complex variety of energy patterns acting as precursors to the DNA molecule. In essence, these energy patterns were literally packets of conscious light energy descended into 9th density, at which point they were transmuted into intricate configurations of light code called DNA keys. These keys were then brought down to 7th density, where the first level of DNA codes was established. When they descended their consciousness down to 7th density, the founders were able to experience life on evolving planets directly. These different DNA codes were scattered throughout the universe. As galaxies formed from galactic clusters, life was seeded into several regions of each galaxy. The Milky Way galaxy was seeded in several quadrants, with our quadrant and the Vega Lyra region of stars. Through the permutation of the DNA codes, 7th density life forms were created, and after many millions of years, life forms were created through all the densities down to the 3rd density. That is how life grows. The original 100 or so souls in this universe went through a process of differentiation, where each 3rd density, 4th density, 5th density, and so on, being that fragmented off from its parent self. The 12th density core of the universe became a sovereign being, or in other words, a complete soul. As each soul evolves, it aligns more and more with its higher self until it merges into its higher self. We are all connected with the 12th dimensional core of the universe, which is in turn connected to the Godhead, the undifferentiated, infinite source of light and love emitting from the prime creator. Devolution is a process that results when an aspect of the Godhead extends itself into the lower densities and becomes differentiated. When the founders extended parts of themselves down to 1st density consciousness, they existed as pure elements, the simplest element being hydrogen. The process of evolution begins when the hydrogen element is imbued with consciousness. Quantum mechanics is the science of this type of consciousness, as it is the study of processes taking place at the level of atoms. There are many types of life forms in this universe, including carbon-based, silicon-based, and lithium-based life forms. All life forms that were created had a natural tendency to become more organized and complicated over time, giving them more self-awareness. The Darwinian evolutionary model of life forms is erect along its general premise. Intense growth and expansion of the simplest form creates mutations in the DNA, which in turn lead to a dramatic change in the form and structure of a living organism. As life evolves from 1st density consciousness up through the mineral and plant stages and onto the animal kingdom, a sophisticated level of awareness is brought forth. At the animal stage, it is possible for higher density souls to incarnate into these life forms because this level of awareness is strong enough to merge with the higher consciousness of the incarnating soul. When you're an animal, the tiny fragment of yourself that is an animal consciousness is united with the large part of yourself that is your soul consciousness. The hominid form is the most sophisticated level of consciousness on a planet and was originally designed to be able to teleport itself from one place in the universe to another. The first hominid bodies were quasi-physical in that they could go from a solid form to a translucent form. They also carried the ability to align with the gravitational and electromagnetic fields of planets and shift density from 1st density to 7th density. When the Carrions and Felines were given planets to evolve on, they had to first evolve animal forms with which to incarnate in, as an animal consciousness is nowhere near the consciousness level of a soul. The etheric guides of each race stayed in the higher densities to guide the souls in the evolving physical bodies, the seeds of life on Earth. The process of DNA birthing discussed above is difficult for many to comprehend. One must understand that in the higher dimensions there is no physicality as we know it on Earth. Everything is a thought or a template. Before you write a book, what must happen? You must make a general outline in your head and do the necessary research. This analogy is like how life is created. Before the actual physical structure is created, an energetic mold must be made, acting as a precise blueprint for an organism's molecular structure. Geometric patterns also take dimensional sacred geometry manifest in 6th density physical reality. Many times there is much experimentation done before a DNA template is agreed upon by higher density beings. Many left-brain scientists on Earth are under the impression that all life on this planet came from an organic soup consisting of hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, and carbon. that just mysteriously and accurately culminated and mutated into the complex life forms that we see today. In higher spiritual science, however, it is consciousness that creates life, and consciousness has an invisible quality to it as well as a physical reality. All of life comes from spirit. Spirit is what animates the physical body, which is really just a dimensional spacesuit used for occupying the lower dimensions. During the time of Pangaea, many millions of years ago, the Earth was like a genetic laboratory for high-density beings and also for advanced extraterrestrial races. There are myths today about exotic life forms such as the Pegasus and the flying dragon, which aren't really myths. On the continent of Pangaea, there were many exotic creatures roaming the land, all of them carrying the genetic code called by the founders the inbreath of creation. That is prime creator's mark, so to speak, on all life forms following the typical path of evolution, where intelligence and self-awareness increases on an upward spiral roadway. Each of these life forms on the primordial Earth contain the blueprint for its ascension. No matter what life form exists or who created it, all of life emerges back to prime creator in the end. As these exotic life forms grew, they developed increasing levels of mental and emotional faculties until they realized they were spirits embedded into various physical and etheric bodies. They had a longing to return to the source of love and light. The tree of knowledge of good and evil is an allegory to this time period, when the first exotic life forms on Earth realized they were all part of Prime Creator on its journey into physical embodiment and the lower dimensions. The realm of creation that was given to these life forms was the fourth dimension, the realm of mind and imagination. Under the law of free will, all of these new life forms had the ability to create anything they wanted. As a result, they used their own DNA to create malformed creatures. With creation, two processes are intimately entwined: evolution and devolution. Devolution is where sparks of spirit differentiate from the Godhead and form as 12th density beings of light, where they drop their vibration down and incarnate, thereby allowing themselves the opportunity to experience all the levels of evolution from first density consciousness to the source. Evolution is the process these beings take from inanimate objects like a grain of sand to trees, animals, and further on to more intelligent life forms, eventually making their way back to Prime Creator. As the continent of Pangaea existed when the Earth was a tropical jungle and still carried the firmament, the thick band of moisture suspended in its atmosphere, it was known as paradise. This is where we get the stories from antiquity about the Garden of Eden and the Golden Age. Also at this time, 300 plus million years ago, Earth was being colonized by different races from all across the galaxy. In all, there were 22 races, 17 human and the rest insectoid, botanical, and reptilian. They set up numerous colonies on the planet. Many of these races were hyperborean, meaning they were scientific healers collecting samples of DNA. Many of these races were hyperborean, meaning they were scientific travelers, collecting samples of DNA life forms, plants, minerals, and just data in general about newly evolving planets. Later, there were small groups of hominoids seeded onto the Earth who lived in relatively remote areas of the world. They were seventh density beings with wings and strong psychic abilities who communicated with the exotic plant and animal life. They also extracted their food directly from sunlight. During the time period of 200 million to 60 million BCE, there were dinosaurs and other large animals roaming the Earth. They were genetic experiments of higher density beings and over the years grew to mammoth proportions. There were all types, but about 60 million years ago, the comet Arontatak came close to the Earth and blocked out the sun. There was an enormous cooldown which destroyed much of the vegetation and animal life. So the hominids, roughly a few 100,000, retreated underground and dug a vast labyrinth of underground cities and tunnels with help from several Palladian factions. There are an incredible amount of stories today about the Earth being hollow with underground cities and caverns, and most certainly the myths of dragons and centaurs today are the result of the genetic experiments performed by the aforementioned high-density beings. The fairy kingdom also existed during this epoch. This was brought about by seventh density Palladians incarnating into hominoid bodies with wings. The fairies were etheric looking and were highly telepathic. Approximately 10 million years ago, the end of the cosmic cycle commenced and the electromagnetic polarities of the Earth shifted. evoking huge storms and floods. Most of the earth became covered in water and many species were wiped out. Also at this time, there was life on two other planets in the solar system, Mars and Maldek, the fourth and fifth planets from the sun. The weather on Mars and Maldek was colder and the environments were less hospitable than that of Earth, but there were forests lying along the equatorial regions and water in the polar regions. The civilizations on Mars and Maldek at this time were very diverse as these planets became a depository of bizarre and creative thought forms. These thought forms reside in the astral realm and influence the way life forms think and operate. Many of the souls that perished during the polar shift on Earth reincarnated on Mars and Maldek and joined civilizations from many different star systems. These civilizations existed mainly in fourth density, so you can see how they would be sensitive to the inception of many diverse vibrations of souls coming from Earth. As the life on Mars, Maldek, and Earth progressed and flourished to many unique levels, advanced races from all over the galaxy took notice, and a group of reptilians from Alpha Draconis sent scout ships to investigate. A reptilian race from Orion also came here, but these races could not place a foothold, so to speak, in these planets because beings of 9th and 12th density were guarding the Earth experiment closely. There was a protective vibration around Earth, but Mars and Maldek were left out in the open, resulting in the Orion and Draco races going on and interbreeding there. After a period of this, they became stuck in the astral fields of Mars and Maldek and began cycles of reincarnation. They had an aggressive mentality and never forgot their original reason for coming over, which was to mine minerals and dominate other races. As the Orions and Draconians traveled to and reincarnated on Mars and Maldek, more and more great stone cities and fortresses started to adorn the surface of the planet. When the Maldekian people discovered neutron technology, it became destructive. Several warring factions grew in opposition of each other, and about 3 million years ago, the neutron weapons were deployed. After several 100,000 deaths, a new bomb was made and fired at an underground military base. Unbeknownst to the launchers, the underground base contained a large supply of neutron bombs. The invasion of the bomb simultaneously ignited over 200 nuclear silos in the base, and the explosions tore apart Maldek into what can be seen today as the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter. Many of the 10 million souls that met their demise in the blast reincarnated on Mars. This event altered the orbits of Mars and Earth, and the electromagnetic disruptions that swept through and out of the solar system attracted the attention of many other extraterrestrial races. A council of high-density beings convened in the Alcyon star system, and it was decided that no more planetary destruction would be allowed anywhere else in the galaxy. This was the beginning of the Great White Brotherhood. After the inception of the Great White Brotherhood, a civilization on Mars was in full bloom, and the souls from Maldek set up in incarnational cycles through breeding with the Pleiadian, Orion, and Draconian lineages. The Mars civilization took on an exponential growth process as many of the Maldekian souls fragmented themselves into more individual souls. The atmosphere of Mars was much thinner than Earth and therefore could not sustain as large a population. Wars broke out over water rights, and eventually uranium and plutonium bombs were created. The Great White Brotherhood saw this and warned the souls on Mars about nuclear warfare. They even helped to build extensive underground shelters and cities. Even so, many of the souls from Maldek had not learned their lesson, and holes were subsequently blown in the atmosphere of Mars, disrupting the ecological balance necessary to house life. Most of the surface life became extinct, and 10 million Martians went underground. The underground cities were then sealed off from the outside world, and they still exist today on fourth density. The pyramids and the face of Mars are the few remnants of the lost civilizations. The 100 million souls that did not survive the destruction reincarnated on Earth into Pleiadian, Orion, Draconian, and other lineages which had resurfaced after the destruction of Pangaea. The Earth became a tropical jungle once again and had about 90% water cover. During the period of 10 million to 1 million BC, life on Earth evolved and became abundant once again. Once the vibration on Earth dropped below fifth density, the Orions and Draconians came in larger numbers and started to control the stargates and portals around the planet. As Earth attracted more and more souls from across the universe, most being fourth density, it became a melting pot of genetics. Most of the Orions who came were escaping the wars occurring between the Rigel and Betelgeuse star nations. And since their physical bodies were more adaptable to the Earth environment, they proliferated more than the Draconians. There was much chaos because rival groups were once again fighting for control of resources. Many archangels and ascended beings from the 8th and 9th density were watching the earth at this time, and a being called Lucifer came down to earth with a group of souls to set up mystery schools teaching how to use intellectual faculties in order to control the emotions. As many souls on earth were learning how to control the emotional body, these qualities were suppressed to the point where the vibration dropped to 3rd density. Archangel Michael saw this and brought a group of ascended beings down to earth for the purpose of bringing these souls back into the light. When they arrived, the vibration was so dense they became caught in the game of duality and saw the more regressive civilizations as an evil that needed to be destroyed. During this struggle, Archangel Michael took the side of the light, and members of the Council of Rigel, including most of the Draconians, took the side of the dark. Lucifer and his band of followers saw this and became strategists, building up both sides to see which one would reign supreme. Lucifer taught the soldiers to suppress their emotions, while Michael taught them to be passionate. When Lucifer saw that Michael was teaching the soldiers, he waged war on Michael's forces, and the war in the heavens ensued, taking place in the astral and etheric realms above Earth. The negatively polarized Orions and Draconians propagated rapidly after this incident, since their foes were now fighting each other. This immense struggle occurred in roughly 500,000 BC, the period between 1 million and 500,000 BC, seeing the rise of the Earth population from 200 million to nearly 1 billion inhabitants. There were minor conflicts on the surface using conventional weapons, but they did not last long. After 1,000 years of fighting, Lucifer and Michael agreed upon a truce, with Lucifer agreeing not to promote overaggression and Michael agreeing not to overcome the suppression of emotion by fighting. Both groups retreated into the celestial realms to integrate the lessons learned. Between 500,000 and 200,000 BC, life evolved on Earth, and a few souls reintegrated their 4th density awareness. Many more souls also came to Earth during this time, which deepened the melting pot of life even more. The Orions from Betelgeuse and Rigel were still the largest groups on the planet. During the war in the heavens, the factions from Betelgeuse sided with Michael, while the factions from Rigel sided with Lucifer. And during the transition phase after the war, both Orion groups maintained their polarities. The Betelgeuse factions continued to breed peaceful groups, while the Rigel factions continued to breed aggressive groups of life forms. Around 200,000 BC, the population of Earth was 1.5 billion. The war between reptiles and humans. I want to narrow the scope a bit now and focus on the dispute between the reptiles and humans in this galaxy, since it is so pertinent to what is happening today on the 3rd Earth Grand Experiment. The Reptilians, when they were planted in this galaxy in the star system of the Alpha Draconians, were given a creation myth that pronounced them the dominant life form and the rightful rulers over any civilization they choose to conquer. They had space travel for over 4 billion years, and their space fleets are highly sophisticated. The humans evolved in the Lyra star system and became very agricultural, abiding there for approximately 40 million years. One day, a large reptilian spacecraft appeared in the sky near the planet Bila, and a squad of Draconians came down to the planet. The Draconians wanted to control the humans, who misunderstood their intention and wanted to know more about them. The Draconians took this as a sign of refusal and destroyed 3 out of the 14 planets in the Lyran system, killing over 50 million Lyrans. The 3 planets that were destroyed were Bila, Terra, and Merc. Since this time, the Reptilians have seen the humans as a food source, and as a result, they are the force behind the repression of human populations in this galaxy, instilling fear-based belief systems and restrictive hierarchies on planets with human populations. The Reptilians themselves live in a fear-based system containing specific hierarchies. They fear the humans because they see them as a threat. The Draconians and their subraces are populated mostly in the Orion star system in this galaxy, and also in the Rigel and Capella star systems. They teach their children that they were in this universe first, and therefore are the rightful heirs. They possess extremely advanced technology, which they use to conquer star systems and genetically alter the life forms they find there. They live in a belief system proclaiming fear as a dominant factor over love and are always stuck in survival mode. They live in societies where it is survival of the fittest. This can be seen in many reptilian races where the mother, after giving birth, will abandon the offspring to fend for themselves. If they survive, they are brought up by a warrior class that uses them for combat games. Their mentality is opposite to that of the humans, who live in peace and are very family-oriented. It is programmed into their belief system never to trust a human because humans made their universe and forced them to struggle for survival. The Reptilians are mostly service to self, meaning they do what they please and care not for other races. I must empathize here that not all Reptilians are service to self. There are many humans who are service to self and fight for power and control over other races. So one should not get confused and think in terms of black and white. In the Milky Way galaxy, there are two schools of thought, one being negative in vibration and the other being positive. The regressive want to control others and therefore live in a state of fear, meaning they constantly fight for survival. The top of the regressive hierarchy chain is the Sikar. The other school of thought is service to others. This school of thought teaches divine oneness and action for the good of the whole. The way the Draconians enslave a race is they reduce the number of DNA strands in that race's biological blueprint, trapping it in a vibrational prison. This prison keeps the race in a low vibrational frequency wherein the thought patterns of the race are restricted. These reduced thought patterns keep the race in a fear-based system where each member of the race fights for survival with the other members and does not evolve its intellect and spirituality. This is a perfect example of what is happening on Earth now. I would also like to clarify an issue concerning the Greys, the aliens that are the most commonly seen when reports of abductions flood the arena. Many millions of years ago, the Greys were more human-looking and had much more emotion. They were living in the star system of Zeta Reticulum, 1 and 2, when they decided to explore the rest of the galaxy. 900,000 years ago, they were captured by a group of reptilians from the Orion star system who were genetically altered and under the control of the Alpha Draconians. In order to control the birthing process of the captured Greys, the Orions slaughtered almost all the females, leaving only a few. And these few they then genetically altered so that all children born thereafter would also be genetically altered. The males were enslaved to mine metals for the reptilians. On Earth, right now, there are many factions of Greys that work for the Alpha Draconians. The Greys that aren't subject to the rule of the reptilians have come here attempting to warn us about the reptilians, although we did not heed that warning. Most humanoid races in other parts of the galaxy live according to the law of one and are in service to the light. In this part of the galaxy, there are 21 star systems under control of the Alpha Draconians. In ancient galactic wars, the humans were able to steal Draconian records, which stated that one day, out of nowhere, a race called the Propel appeared and created a species of humans to war with the Draconians. This race is most notably the Founders, who were only acting out the polarity integration game. Alex Collier is an Andromedan contactee who lectures about the Draconians, Lyrans, and Patal. The human form, as was mentioned earlier, the human form originated in Lyra. The Lyrans were the original white Aryan race and were very agricultural. After the wars with the Reptilians, the human survivors fled to many other star systems in this galaxy where they became the Sirians, Arcturians, Antarians, Pleiadians, Andromedians, Cygnus Alphans, Alpha Centaurians, Cesopians, and many others. The only two races now that have pure human DNA from Lyra are the Pleiadians and the Andromedans, both of which are now assisting the Earth in its evolution. The Pleiadians are mostly fair-skinned, while the Andromedians have many different skin colors, as do other human races in the galaxy. Some of these races lost their human appearance through breeding programs, as now there are numerous physical appearances among races in this galaxy through the Reptilians, though the Reptilians have kept their general appearance. As many human colonies were established on different planets after the first Great Galactic War, many root races were created with varying mental, emotional, and spiritual aspects, which in effect led to an abundance of life in the universe. The nature of the reptiles is cheating, and many Alpha Draconians have demonstrated their dominance over inferior races, but it is all part of the spiritual evolution of the universe. As the Lyrans settled in different parts of the galaxy, they learned to adapt to multitudes of planetary environments. As there was some minor conflict, peaceful solutions were always thought up. The human race is very creative, and it has this advantage over the reptilian race. Obviously, the destruction of planet Earth now is not a result of Lyran belief, because the Lyrans were expert at planetary involvement as well as individual involvement. The fact that millions of people on Earth starve every day is due to reptilian hierarchical belief systems that have been imposed on this planet and not to Lyran philosophy. The Lyrans knew how to grow an abundance of food and live in harmony with nature. In early times, the lifespan of the Lyrans was between 300 to 450 years, but this was to grow considerably over many aeons. Even the Reptilians have learned to live for thousands of years. The Lyrans knew how to live in large communities and held a belief system which stated the needs of the many outweighed the needs of the few. When the Lyrans were invaded by the Reptilians, many of them settled in the Pleiadian star system. The Pleiadians developed effective weapons which aided them in wars with Reptilians from Orion. They can be considered our ancient ancestors, as their genetics were used in our creation. We are very similar to the Pleiadians, except for the fact that they are much more evolved emotionally, spiritually, and technologically. They are here now trying to teach us about their growing pains and how we are experiencing many of the same problems, but not enough Earthlings are listening. The Pleiades is a cluster of 254 stars located in the constellation of Taurus. The Pleiadians are concerned about our use of scientific knowledge, and they state that we use this to hurt the planet and not help it, which is why Earth is dying now. The Pleiadians here now can speak all the Earth languages, and they are trying to teach people that religion and politics are really two sides of the same coin, with both being used for the enslavement of humanity. All the Earth languages are derived from an ancient language called Tamil, which was spoken in Lyra. The Pleiadians stress that we create our own future, and they do not want to be responsible for us if they try to help and all goes wrong. They are linked karmically with Earth, and what faces them now is somewhat of a conundrum. They are waiting for more Earthlings to wake up so we can take more responsibility for ourselves. The Pleiadians have a fear that if they try to help us and it fails, we will just blame it on them. Pleiadian contactees Billy Mayers, Barbara Marshnak, and Barbara Hanclow all talk about this. The group of humans that settled in the Arcturus star system is known as the Arcturians. This race of humanity is very private and adept at healing. Their technology is highly advanced, but it is only used for education, travel, and healing. It is used not at all for warfare, although they do have the ability to protect themselves when need be. The Arcturians have intervened in the past on Earth in order to resolve conflicts. They were involved with the Hebrews, Heberu, and Moses, Thutmoses on Mount Sinai. Space travel. I would like to touch upon the subject of space travel now to satisfy any concerns the reader might have regarding how extraterrestrial races move around in the universe. Various methods are exerted on the fabric of space-time. Quantum flux is the flow of energy, and assuming the holographic nature of the universe, there really is no such thing as here and there, since everything exists everywhere at once. Time seems like a reality in the lower densities, but in the higher dimensions, it doesn't exist. All form of matter that you see around you is simply condensed vibrations of spiritual energy. Keeping this in mind, there are three modes of space travel utilized by extraterrestrials coming and going to Earth right now. These are phase shifting, zero-point fields, and thought transference. The Greys from Zeta Reticulum 1 and 2 and other races from 3rd and 4th density use phase shifting, which utilizes the natural lay and grid lines of planetary bodies and also wormholes that exist within the space-time fabric. The wormholes and warp holes in our universe are called portals and stargates by many spiritual teachers. This mode of travel likens to the analogy of drawing 2 points on a piece of paper connected by a straight line and calling these points A and B. If one were to ponder the fastest way of getting from point A to point B, one might realize that it would be by folding the paper in on itself so that 2 points met with each other. When phase shifting occurs, an electromagnetic field is spun around the craft that attunes itself to the ley line or vortex in question. Zero-point fields employ the use of zero-point propulsion. This dualistic reality we live in can actually be transcended, and one can enter into a state of oneness when there is balance, where there is balance of polarity in the electromagnetic null zone. This is the zone in which a spacecraft utilizing zero-point propulsion will enter into the etheric field known as the ether in antiquity. A ship that enters into this field can then re-enter into third dimensional or fourth dimensional space by repolarizing itself at the destination in question. The dimensional shift the ship and its occupants experience during zero-point propulsion transcends the laws of Newtonian and Einsteinian physics. When a ship enters into this null zone, it is subject to an infinite amount of energy, which it could then potentially command. The most advanced form of space travel is thought transference. This method is not employed by technology. Rather, it is the result of spiritual energy that is the source of everything. Ships using this method are aligned with the higher dimensional frequencies of light and can travel to any place in any of the universes in a second. They can also travel to any period of time in any dimensional reality. These light ships bring messages from the cosmic center of consciousness, which could help humanity in the ways of attaining spiritual growth. Every universe, galaxy, planet, and person has a unique energy signature, and when one wishes to travel among the stars, one can just attune his or her consciousness to the desirable energy signature. In the higher dimensions, everything exists in a point or singularity, so there is no here, there, or time. Everything is everywhere at once. When a soul evolves beyond 9th density, space travel becomes obsolete. A being of high density can appear to anyone and communicate with that entity by altering the molecular structure of the being's auric field. When beings channel, the channel itself is contained within an etheric field that has an energy signature matched as much as possible to the energy signature of the receiver. When the thought forms of an individual are scrutinized, that individual is communicated to by a being of higher vibration using terminology and language recognizable to the individual in reception of higher wisdom. The Arcturians. Now back to the Arcturians, who are one of the most advanced civilizations spiritually and technologically in the universe. The Arcturians originally settled in the Boot star constellation, where they evolved into a fifth density life form. Many humans, when they die on Earth, will pass through the Arcturian Stargate, the midway programming center for the physical brotherhoods of this universe. Many souls coming to Earth use this energy as a training course for life and on the planet and pass through the Stargate, where they become accustomed to physicality. The Arcturians are very private and work to serve Prime Creator, a being they call the Radiant One. They work as an energy healer for humanity on an emotional, mental, and spiritual level. They teach souls how to live in the fifth dimension, where the qualities of negativity, fear, and guilt are exchanged for love and light. The Arcturians are a highly advanced consciousness, and when they take on physical bodies, they usually appear 4 feet tall with a slender green body and large almond-shaped eyes. The leaders of their race sometimes take on the appearance of horses. They are totally empathetic, telepathic, and telekinetic. They serve as a protection team for many developing civilizations in this galaxy and have been protecting Earth from negative regressive races since its inception. The starship Athena, named after the Greek goddess, has been orbiting the Earth for thousands of years and now plays a crucial role in Earth's ascension, as many negative races wish to prevent this. The Arcturians execute healing procedures on the energy bodies of humans by taking them in their dream state and aligning them with high frequencies. Many humans are taken in their dream states to the fifth density Arcturian starships, where higher light vibrations are downloaded into the 4-body system. The Arcturians have given much information about Earth's history through channels. Dr. Norma J. Milanovich of the Athena Leadership Center and Jasmuheen of the Embassy of Peace are 2 of these contactees and channels. And they also have been charging the planet's energy matrix with high-frequency beams, altering the consciousness of humanity. Many of these interactions are insertions of high vibrational energy into the chakras of the Earth, and also our individual human bodies have helped raise the consciousness of our planet to a point where more people can access higher levels of knowing. The Arcturian civilization is like a signpost for the future Earth, and many here now from Arcturus are teaching humans how to let go of fear and allow their intuition to guide them along their chosen path. The Arcturians travel the universe in highly advanced starships which utilize fifth dimensional crystals, energy grids which harvest the energy of the central suns of all the galaxies. They are currently holding the electromagnetic energies of Earth in balance and are preventing many negative catastrophes that have been predicted for centuries. The polar shift that many people are talking about will actually be on a spiritual level instead of a physical one. In the first part of Earth's history, the Arcturians created a space of love and harmony for the creation of the blueprint for the human etheric body. And now we are relearning how to transcend the dense physical body for a body of light, a fifth dimensional crystal light body. They teach us that love created everything, so it is unnecessary for us to constantly seek unconditional love. When the negative energies are removed from Earth and from our physical bodies, the unconditional love will flow much easier, and it will be easy to clear the negative lower astral entities living in people's auras. They feed off lower human emotion and consume life energy. On the home planet of Arcturus, there is a governing hierarchy, but it is nothing like the controlling powers on Earth. On Arcturus, a group of wise elders with extremely high vibrational frequencies guide the planet in missions of love and peace away from Arcturus. Everyone on their planet works for the good of the whole, which in turn works for the good of every individual. Your profession on Arcturus is determined by the colors in your aura. The Arcturians here now assisting the Earth have no permission to remove the dark forces because it is all part of the experiment. When the year 2012 moves closer, these beings will reveal themselves and assist Earth in the golden age of Aquarius. The language of light. Many people incarnated on Earth right now do not understand that the physical manifest world is truly an illusion. This illusion is called the Maya in Hinduism. In this illusion, one may wander endlessly searching for answers that are never there. We are all victims of the matrix, the world that has been pulled over our eyes to blind us from the truth. Everything that you experience on third density Earth is an illusion of the mind. as your reality is mostly determined by electrical impulses interpreted by your brain. In reality, your brain is just a physical manifestation of your mind stemming from your third eye chakra. It manifests into two polarities: left brain, logic, deduction, and induction; right brain, intuition, feeling, emotion, bigger picture mentality. Many on earth are left brain prisoners, slaves to their hidden masters who manipulate the five sense reality from behind the scenes. In essence, we have been disconnected from our higher self, the highest expression of ourselves being pure love. When you enter your body in the womb, your soul consciousness attaches itself to the photon receptors in your brain and spinal cord, the central nervous system being the prime conductor of the body. We are consciousness experiencing the world through a human nervous system. Science will mistake the central nervous system for conscious life, but this is not so. Your consciousness exists in your aura and your soul, that being an extension of your oversoul. There is a chakra that sits 6 inches above your head that serves as a connection to the oversoul. Most of the time, we are acting out of divine blueprints of learning in three-dimensional physical reality without even realizing our lives are manifestations of incarnational learning cycles. We are now reaching the end of a cycle, the age of Pisces, and breaking free from the matrix will be as easy as it ever has been. Earth has been a Galactic Federation school since 1987, and the souls in this school that choose love will graduate in 2012. I'm in class 2021. Those who chose not to align with the higher frequencies of light will incarnate on other planet of their choosing, which will serve as another opportunity to ascend. All is as it should be. The language of our planet is not English, Spanish, French, or German. It's the language of photons and electrons. Our brains are starved for light. The Earth conspiracy. It has been recurrently been debated whether or not ancient astronauts visited the early civilizations of Earth. But now, with channels bringing forth higher spiritual knowledge and new information leaking out from inside the secret government, a higher state of awareness has assumed the position of authority over those who are perceptive enough to pick up on these higher thought forms. Closed-minded science will never understand what happened in Egypt and Sumer, but New Age thinking and revolutionary archaeological finds are finally starting to reveal the real story. In order to fully understand the early history of Earth, one must understand the nature of conspiracy and how it maintains a low frequency of behavior. The word conspire means to breathe together. So in actuality, two people could create a conspiracy, however large, in order to advance a common desire. On Earth, there are many micro-conspiracies, some intertwined with the larger alien conspiracies and some not. However, it is the alien conspiracies that I wish to focus on. The secret world government controlled by the Illuminati, interbreeding Draconian bloodlines, seeks to maintain order out of chaos, or in other words, organized chaos. They have as their goal the complete destruction of organized society. What would they do this? Why would they do this? I realize it's hard to understand why any human would have this as their agenda, but in order to fully comprehend it, the darkest of all conspiracies must be exposed. The organization calls themselves the Dark Lords and has been involved in numerous battles over Earth and other planets throughout many aeons. The Dark Lords work under the protection of the Dark Forces. These Dark Forces are souls, any soul who chooses this, who have organized together and conspired, attempting to seize light away from other souls. I mentioned earlier that everything is light, so how can this occur? There is one way called an entropic energy exchange. When this occurs, the darkness can take light and convert it into an array of distorted impulses, whereby the illusion of power and superiority is maintained or is manifested as a sort of ego dominion. This transfer of power cannot hold indefinitely, so after a while the illusion will disintegrate and the light will return to the source. As the dark force believes it is separate from the source, it is stuck in survival mode where it must take the energy drawn from the lower ego desires of money, prestige, and power from others. Most souls will not consciously surrender their power, so the dark forces have to use trickery and deception in order to gain the victim's life force energy. When a person uses drugs, it expends lots of hate energy, and negative astral beings controlled by the dark forces are attracted to that person's aura, where they live and feast. Most people are unaware of this because if they were, it would not be occurring so much. On Earth at this time, a transition period has been initiated whereby light energy is being directed into the dark, dense corners of the planet, and many conspiracies are coming to the surface. The vibration of Earth is so low right now that it is taking time that is speeding up to the perception of many Earthlings who are finally sensing the truth. The most ostentatious conspiracy on Earth right now concerns the Reptilian Factions. They originate in many fourth density worlds and are spread out through many sectors in the Orion, Sirius, and Alpha Draconian star system. They even have bases in our neighboring galaxy of Andromeda. Not all Draconians are Dark Lords. dark lords. So again, I urge the reader to not think in terms of black and white. I laid out in discourse earlier the nature of the reptilians, so the reader can make his or her conjectures about the dark lords and why they do what they do. Right now, there are many dark lords on Earth who live in the astral plane in the fourth dimension. They siphon off the energy of people who live in states of anger and fear, and they use their puppets in the political and religious arenas to channel as much negative energy as possible to them so that they may increase their power and dominion over other sentient life forms. Most of the governments and police forces of the world have been penetrated by these forces, the ones who take fear and give fear in return. The military industrial complex is one of the ways human herds are quelled with technology and war. The dark forces will remain in power until a certain mass of people wake up to the greater reality of who their rulers really are. When enough people do wake up, it will be like the 100 monkey effect. When enough souls become aware and increase their light energy, this awareness will spread through the whole morphogenetic field of the planet, and other souls will start to feel this energy and consciousness. This could happen in another form. When enough individuals demonstrate knowledge of a new idea or concept, it embeds itself within the overall consciousness of the population. This is beginning to happen on Earth, and when enough people focus their attention on love and higher consciousness, the rest of the population will have the benefit of a portal extending through the vibrational prison currently covering the planet. This electromagnetic prison has been called the net by many channelers. When only one person out of 7 billion attempts this, it is nearly impossible. But when enough people focus their energy and concentration, a whole of consciousness will be burned into the stratosphere of negative thought forms hanging over Earth like a garment. When this whole reaches a critical mass, the entire population of people can access higher vibrational feelings and thought forms with ease instead of concentrated effort. The Illuminati is another secret organization which will be exposed in this book. The Illuminati began as a series of secret mystical orders, but over time has been corrupted by power, greed, and the interbreeding bloodline families seeded by the gods of the Bible. The members of this faction originally called themselves the Illuminated Ones because of the higher spiritual knowledge they gained, but after a while, many freedoms were taken away. The Order of the Druids is an excellent example of this. As centuries passed, it became harder and harder to gain entry into these organizations, which were prided on secrecy. Instead of schools, they became cults that practiced demon worship and blood sacrifice. Today, the Illuminati is composed of international bankers and members of the power elite, including presidents, prime ministers, Roman Catholic officials, and generals of war. They meet in secret and perform rituals designed to increase their hold over society. This hold on hypnotization perpetuated by the media and education systems of many nations. Their control of the entire monetary system also ensures them the capability of moving power influences anywhere on the planet. They control Hollywood and many professional actors who have surrendered themselves to the Lucifer and the New World Order. They also control the CIA and organized crime, as well as the drug trade industry. Major big-name pharmaceutical companies are owned by these elite men and women who wish to destroy our youth with harmful opiates and chemicals that destroy our immune systems. That is why they release chemtrails in the sky and pollute our drinking water with sodium fluoride, a toxicity that reduces the abilities of our bodies to produce white blood cells. It is because Earth is overpopulated and they are losing their foothold in the entire infrastructure of the planet. They employ the advertising of fatty foods, harmful drugs, and sex to corrupt the youth, and they pollute the air and water in order to reduce our health and lifespans, so we demand more healthcare. The healthcare is also controlled by the Illuminati, as conventional medicine does not even come close to the healing potential of love, light, and higher consciousness. There are, however, members of the Illuminati who work for the Galactic Federation of Light and who are double agents, so to speak. There is a group of Greys from Zeta Reticulum here on a mission to save their species from extinction. Since they have suppressed their emotional nature, they chose humans, a species with powerful emotional energy, to breed with. This gray faction has lost the ability to reproduce because they bred out their emotional nature in return for higher intellect and technology. Many members of the Zeta race agreed to incarnate in human bodies to later be abducted and disseminated of genetic material. When these souls reach childbearing age, they are brought to the ships. If they are female, they are impregnated with Zeta embryos, and if they are male, their sperm is extracted. The females are brought back to the ships later where their fetus is extracted and grown. Many gray nations have formed alliances with the governments of the world, where they have exchanged technology for anonymity. There are races of grays who are slaves to the reptilians and do their dirty work. And there are also species of grays that have been bred by the reptilians. These genetic offspring wear a skin-tight gray suit over their bodies, which actually look rough, sinewy, and pink. The large black eyes are goggles that cover their real eyes, which are large and have slit pupils. The nature of karma. Thus far into our endeavor, the reader might be a little confused. Those who have heard of karma might ask the question, Why would these evil forces do what they do if all is going to come back around and bite them? Well, karma doesn't work like that. Karma is simply the result of a mental misconception of the need to atone for past mistakes. Those who do evil will not succeed, not because they are evil, but because all things in the end must return to the source. This source is pure light. Evil is just an interpretation, and many times it comes to the form of a lesson that must be learned. If no lessons were learned, there would be no evolution. The Illuminati does what it does because it can get away with it. Their secrecy is coming to an end, though, and soon their organization will bleed itself out from the inside. Their so-called evil actions do not result in evil being done upon them in the future, but rather result in the actions leading to a conflict resolution where the light and the dark are fully integrated. Karma can be defined as an energetic residue field within an incomplete expression of divinity. Our society on Earth right now is an incomplete expression of divinity because most people are polarized to either the dark or to the light. Our karma resonates as a whole. The political and religious leaders of the world hurt us because we let them hurt us. We are our own worst enemy. If everyone stood up for themselves right now, the Illuminati would not be able to exist anymore. Karma is accumulated when an unforgiving situation is stored into one's subconscious mind and precipitated by the belief that one must atone for past mistakes. As unresolved issue is an emotional charge held in the subconscious mind, and it cannot be released by simply forgetting about it. Forgetting is not releasing. Forgetting is storing the charge even further into the subconscious, where it will be even harder to access for future healing. And an individual who holds no karma experiences life fully and then releases it fully. Every situation is either a lesson or a reward because all of life is learning. Those who hold regrets are operating under an assumption that they have done something wrong, although in reality, doing something wrong is just an illusion. Since all of life is constantly evolving and merging into the Godhead, no experience should be perceived as a regret. All experiences are life lessons that must be embraced fully. Since everything is part of the Godhead, everything is connected to everything else. The reptilians are just as loved as the humans because everything is one at all times. Karma results when the illusion of separation enters one's awareness. Until now, the Earth has not had sufficient enough energy levels to allow for the release of residual emotional energies contained within the collective consciousness of the planet, and also within groups of incarnating souls as well as individual souls. A karma-free existence is one where the present moment is fully realized at all times and one lives in harmony with spirit. There is no guilt or shame, and all souls learn lessons of humility and self-acceptance while embracing every emotion. Each emotion that is not totally embraced will sink down into the subconscious mind where it builds residual energy. Numerous people on Earth now repress their emotions, disabling them from feeling the full experience of life. They are afraid they will not be taken seriously or that they are victims of bullies. Those who stay in the victim consciousness and will never be free of karma because they aren't in tune with spirit. Being in harmony with spirit means one is self-empowered. At this time, a wave of this self-empowerment is stretching over the earth, waking people up to their true potential. Above all, the main ingredient for living a life of karma-free life is being able to live in the moment. Near the year 2012, much of the karma will be released from the earth, freeing herself and her inhabitants to ascend into the fifth dimension. The main ingredient for living a karma-free life, folks, is just staying tuned to the Obanda podcast. Namaste, namaskaram.